Hi everyone, it's Lauren and today we have a new tag video for you. This is the Bookish Beginnings Tag and I put a group of questions together because I think it'll be really interesting to find out a little bit more about the reading histories of everybody on here and why it is that we are on here making videos about books. We all love reading, we all love literature and we all like making videos on YouTube about those, which is quite a specific subset of people in the world, I think. So I think this will be really interesting to find out a little bit more about my favourite booktubers and why it is that we're all here discussing books. So the first question is, tell us about what you love to read most as a child. And I loved reading when I was growing up. I mean, obviously I did, because I love reading now. I did have a lull when I was in my teenage years, but kind of all through primary school I was just a complete avid reader. The ones that I remember most reading were the Jacqueline Wilson books. I really loved all of those. My favourites of hers were Double Act and The Lottie Project. Double Act is about twin girls and they're writing in their diary, and I just thought it was so clever because one of them wrote in kind of normal text and the other one wrote in italics, so you knew which one was right. And I think books where like the character is actually physically writing, I really enjoyed that kind of book and I thought that was really clever at the time, and I was like, wow, that's really cool. And I used to write my own fiction which was basically Jacqueline Wilson but just with different names, and my character would be writing in her diary, and I loved those. And The Lottie Project I loved also because it's about a girl called Charlie who was at school and she's learning about Victorians at school and she's got to do a project. So she writes an imagined diary of a Victorian girl called Lottie, and Lottie's life in the Victorian ages mirrors Charlie's life now, and I really love that as well because I was really into history as well when I was young, and I especially liked social history, so like how people actually lived at that time. The other books that I loved so much were the Horrible History series by Terry Deary. I had all of those and I read them, I reread them all the time, and I actually still now watch the CBBC Horrible Histories programme, which yeah, okay, it's meant for children, but I think it's so funny and I really like it. I loved Horrible Histories so much. Question 2 is, tell us about the first adult fiction book that you tried to read, and you may not have read an adult fiction book yet, which is absolutely fine, and if you haven't you can say which one you want to read. So for me, as I said, I think I had a bit of a lull during my teenage years, but I remember when I was 13 trying to read Lord of the Rings because my friend had read them and the films were gonna come out that year or something, so I was like, okay, so I wanted to read them as well, and I just remember just loving it, and I just got so into this world and I loved it so much. But I found it really difficult to read, and it's hard. It's a hard book to read now. Like I remember going to see the films and being like, oh, that's not what I thought happened. Like for some reason I thought the Battle of Helm's Deep happened in a wood and was like no big deal. I remember going to the cinema and being like, ooh, I didn't remember this happening in the book at all. So it was a good experience for me though to attempt something that I found really difficult and language that I found difficult, and to keep going. I think because I loved it so much I was like, I'm going to keep going even though I'm finding it hard, and maybe it's not the best thing that I skimmed over it, but I got through it. I got to the end. I got the overarch of the story. Question 2 is, what is the first classic book or literary canon book that you read, but not because you were forced to at school, because you actually went out of your way to read it because you actually wanted to? And for me, I think the first one I read was probably David Copperfield by Charles Dickens, which I read when I was about 16, I think, and this was sort of after my reading lull, because like YA wasn't a thing when I was a kid. Like I guess there were YA books, but it wasn't a genre. And like also the internet had just become a thing, and you know, MSN Messenger was a really important thing for me to be on all afternoon with my friends that I had just spent all day at school with. So not much reading got done there, but when I started A-levels I started trying to read, I just wanted to read a little bit more, and I thought Dickens, I've never read a Dickens, I'll try that. And actually I think David Copperfield was a really good one for me to start with because it's quite easy to read, it's quite short, and it's very much like a child's journey, and I think it's one that's actually quite good for young readers, so I'm pleased that I started with that. I've not actually read that much Dickens since then actually, and that is something that I really want to try and expand upon because I really enjoyed that, and I've read A Tale of Two Cities, which I really liked as well. Question 4 is, tell us about a book which helped you realise which genre or which style of writing you really truly loved. Something that you read and you had that wow moment of, I need to read more books like this. And for me, I think that was Written on the Body by Jeanette Winterson, which I read probably when I was about 18, and my friend recommended it to me and just said, this is a really weird, like this is like nothing I've ever read before, you should read it. So I read it and I was just astounded because all of the books I'd read before then had been very plot driven, and I don't think I'd ever read anything which was so much about the language, about emotions and very, very poetic. This is a first person narrative and you never know if the narrator is a man or a woman, and it's about them falling in love and having an affair with a married woman, and it's just so beautiful and the detail is just astounding. And I just remember reading it and being like, this is it's just incredible, and you're trying to work out the gender of this person, not that it matters because that's kind of the point of it, but yeah, really, really beautiful, so different and completely out of my comfort zone in terms of style, which I think is really important. If you want to expand your horizons, you just have to push yourself to read different stuff, and you might find something that you really love. Question 5 is the first time that you read a prize-winning book, like not by accident because it happened to have won a prize, but by something that you saw that it had won a prize and that made you want to read it. And the first one of these that I specifically read was Midnight's Children by Salman Rushdie, just after, I think maybe a couple of years after it had won the Man Booker Prize. And I found it really difficult actually. I remember at the time there being a lot of conversation surrounding like people who really, really loved it and people that just thought it was boring and really hated it. And I was kind of in the middle. I didn't hate it, but I don't know what I was expecting. I didn't think it was that amazing. But again, I think that was quite important for me to see that style of writing, the style of fiction that wins awards, because it made me think, because I didn't love it. And I remember reading it thinking, well, why has it won the Man Booker Prize then? Like, what is it about this work which people have deemed, oh, this is the best book of this that was released this year? And I think it's just having appreciation for the writer's craft and what they've accomplished in that book was kind of a new sensation for me. Again, like kind of looking at how they put it together and what they were trying to say in the book rather than just enjoyability, not that enjoyability isn't an important factor in a book. So that was good again to kind of getting into a new genre of fiction that I wasn't aware of before. And question 6, if you have, tell us about a piece of translated fiction that again you intentionally went to buy because it was translated. I'm sure I've read some translated books before, but I didn't really think about it, and I wasn't trying to have a diverse reading or read from different cultures. I was just reading what was there. And the first time I remember going into Waterstones and going to the Europa editions section and being like, I'm going to read a piece of translated fiction, and was only last year actually. And I read The Days of Abandonment by Elena Ferrante, and Ferrante is an Italian author, and this is about a woman whose husband leaves her, and she kind of has a bit of a breakdown and kind of gets back together and works out what this means for her and what her new life is going to be. And I found it really interesting because I think, well, the way this book is written, it feels like Italian society is very, very traditional, and she had given up work and she had given up everything to be a wife and mother, and then when he decides he wants to leave, that kind of leaves her with a lack of identity and sort of, well, what happens now? I haven't been doing anything because I've been a wife to you all of these years. And it's a very honest look at motherhood and about being a wife and about being a woman, and I found it really interesting, and I would recommend it to anyone actually. Although I did recommend it to my mum, who read it and then was like, oh, this woman, she keeps moaning about her husband, I just wanted to get up and just do something else with your life. And I was like, well, that's the point, mum. But you know, so maybe it's not for anyone, but I really, really enjoyed it. And finally, question 7 is, tell us about why you're here on Booktube and about the process of filming and uploading your first video, because I don't hear about this from a lot of people, and I think this will be really interesting. I've said before in my Booktube newbie tag video that I got into YouTube through watching beauty gurus and that kind of stuff. I think that's how a lot of people get in, because I think if you're not into YouTube already, you probably type in, how do I do a smoky eye or something like that, and then you come up with that community and that world. And I found Sana's channel first when she appeared on Essie Button's channel, and then I just found this whole new community. And I'd been watching YouTube thinking, oh, I love you, like, I would love to do that, I would love to do YouTube, that's something I'd really want to do, but I'm not really into beauty, so there's nothing for me here. And I just had no concept that I could talk about things other than makeup. I don't know why that didn't occur to me, but once I found Booktube, I was like, that's it, this is the sphere I want to get into. And yeah, so I got a tripod for Christmas last year, and I was like, right, now I've got a tripod, now I can film. And I filmed on New Year's Eve last year, because I thought I'll start in January, that's a really good time to start, because then I'll know how long I've been around without having to without having to do maths. And I filmed it on New Year's Eve, and I just remember like holding up books and being like, I don't know what to say. Like, I knew I had thoughts about the books. I was like, yes, I'll talk about this will be really interesting, but I had no idea how to explain a plot to someone, like, and how to kind of start from the beginning, explain what a book was about, and I really struggled with it. And I just couldn't get the words out that I wanted to say, and I found it really difficult kind of talking to the camera and being natural. I remember thinking like, oh God, like I thought I'd be quite good at this, but I can't do it at all. But it was fine, and I put it together and I was like, yeah, and I hadn't edited anything before either, so I just had a go and stuck it up on my channel. And I prepared my channel before. I'd made all the artwork and kind of done the layout so that hopefully it would look professional-ish when I got a video up there. I remember putting it up there and just being like, and then like waiting. And I think after I'd got something like 8 views or something weird like that, I like text my boyfriend and I was like, oh my God, 8 people have watched my video. Because I think that's actually like more scary than thinking about a big group of people, like a bigger number, because it's like it's specific. Like you can imagine 8 people in a room watching you. And I found that really unnerving. And when I first got like 2 people subscribing, I was like, yay, I got 2 subscribers. And it was like, it was so exciting, but it started to feel a bit real. I was like, oh no, I don't know if I want people watching me anymore. I might get rid of it. I don't think I like it now. But it was good, and I got past it, obviously. And yeah, I'm really pleased that I joined in. So I'm gonna tag a whole bunch of people because I think this is, well, I think it's gonna be interesting. I wanna find out the answers to these questions anyway, because I think, again, like I say, we're all quite similar, but all quite different. So it'd be interesting to hear everyone else's stories and kind of how you got to be where you are today. So I'm going to link all the people that I'm going to tag in my information section below, but please feel free to do this tag if you want to. It is by no means a closed group, and I'm really looking forward to seeing everyone's videos on this, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye! Every time I mention this book in a video, everyone comments down below going, oh my God, read Middlesex, like it's so good, and I'm just so pleased that I have read it. So thank you to everyone who said I should read it, because I'm really, really enjoying it.